at 4:48 in the afternoon, a tornado drops just south of Aplington, Iowa. The date is May 25th, 2008. This violent tornado initially touches down in an open field south of Aplington, Iowa. And as if the tornado looked to be weak, it was going to turn into the strongest tornado in years. But for that to be talked about, we will have to discuss on how it actually formed, or more specifically, what storm system caused it to be like this violent. Alright. The storm system that spawned this extremely violent and quite wacky tornado actually began on May 22nd, when a extremely potent severe weather system was taking place over the Central and Great Plains. And as a result of this storm system, many tornadoes touched down from May 22nd to May 24th. This included the powerful and very infamous Windsor, Colorado EF5 tornado, which was quite unconventional considering it was a massive wedge. Then, just on May 24th, there was the Quinter, Kansas EF4 tornado. That would be the start of this monster. This tornado was spawned because of a moderate risk that took place over the central Great Plains, and including Iowa. That included a 5% chance risk over Parkersburg. Then, and just at 4:48 in the afternoon, a tornado touches down near Aplington, Iowa. This tornado was a messy, multi-vortex wedge tornado. It had enough power to erase the entire town in seconds. Trees were splintered down to their bare stubs, and the tornado had extreme winds in the core. This was about to turn into one of the strongest tornadoes since Greensburg, Kansas. Why? The question is, why was this tornado so violent? Well, that was because of the extremely strong, potent weather system.
Compacting, except
and as this tornado was beginning its venture towards Parkersburg, it was noted by Deputy Chief Tim Wolthoff that the tornado was very violent and just giant. And so, the National Weather Service in Des Moines, Iowa, issued a tornado warning for the town of Parkersburg, stating a large and dangerous tornado was on the ground, and everyone that was in the path needed to take immediate shelter.
Wow, it's getting close over here.
If we're being honest here, in the long, 51-page long document made by the National Weather Service, the issuance of a tornado emergency was quite modest. But anyway, this tornado was beginning to get violent. Instead of being just a messy cone or something, it was a giant wedge. And all that was left to do was cause damage. The tornado was now entering Parkersburg, and basically every structure disappeared into the darkness. This was a freak tornado, and it was only a matter of time before something devastating would occur. The tornado was beginning to get some extremely powerful winds in the core, and as the tornado was entering town, many buildings sustained extreme damage, including many large buildings. And the first building impacted was a sheet metal factory that was just completely obliterated. Nothing was left of the entire facility, just simply sheet metal and or vinyl that was found in fields. At this point, the tornado was more stronger than it ever was. Not only that, this was also the most recent EF5 or F5 in Iowa State history since 1976. But that record is just still ongoing to this day, but it's subject to change. Anyway, this tornado had enough power to obliterate every structure. This doorbell camera footage caught the tornado, the dark mass on the left side, coming in to completely destroy this home. And it was just terrifying. You could see the power flashes, winds exceeding, and here we go. There's a unique S-curve also carved into a nearby field by the intense subvortices. All these damage photos will be accredited to the main tornado. But this tornado was also followed by a satellite EF0 tornado. Quite brief, only lasted about a mile. And this situation was going to turn tragic because, like everything, something bad always has to happen. It was just a matter of when. The tornado was beginning to gain strength, and as it was gaining strength, the main core had a winds of at least 200 miles per hour. This was a disastrous tornado, and it was becoming quite clear to the people of Parkersburg and New Hartford. But as the tornado left town, it was nearly 50% of every structure in town was gone. Nothing was left standing because of this giant and extremely violent tornado. This was just obviously something we've never seen before. The devastation was so bad, the losses were just terrible because not everyone's just going to witness a violent tornado tearing up the town. This extremely low-hanging mesocyclone that produced a tornado was only a few hundred feet off the ground, and it was obvious that this tornado could have caused many more fatalities. Unfortunately, though, 9 people would lose their lives, and we will get into that very shortly, though. This tornado unfortunately left a deep scar into the earth, and that would only be a reminder of what actually happened on that day. But it's only a matter of time before the situation gets more extreme. The tornado also impacted the Parkersburg High School, which sustained extreme damage. Unfortunately, Richard and Ethel Mulder, Lisa Bleecker, Bertha Eckhoff, Norman Buthen, Shirley Luring, Ray Mayox, Charles Horan would unfortunately be killed, as their homes would be completely destroyed. The town of Parkersburg had only a matter of minutes just to clean up, because after the tornado passed, the cleanup process was just lengthy, and as the process began, many people in New Hartford and Dunkerton began to realize that they weren't going to be the only ones that were going to be impacted that day. Unfortunately, though, the tornado gained so much strength that ground scouring was becoming repetitive. Homes were literally just decimated. And in some cases, there was no home. It was just a basement, simply. And many people, unfortunately, lost their lives, which was just, it was bewildering, because no one had ever seen a violent tornado like this. And the National Weather Service was doing their job correctly, issuing warnings before the tornado hit. And the circulation finally entered New Hartford. The tornado was larger than the town itself, but that was not going to be the only thing that was going to be talked about that day. This video here was taken in Parkersburg near a family restaurant as people are celebrating a family graduation party, and mainly for the class of 2008. But they unfortunately would realize that thing was coming straight for them. As everyone in the restaurant hid in the walk-in cooler, where everyone would thankfully survive. The tornado did eventually overtake the building, which caused the entire thing to crumble. There was nothing left behind. This tornado clearly didn't want anything to be left behind after it decided to leave. This video was just terrifying to witness. And many people knew that would be true. And there's many devastation areas or I should say destructed and just super sad occasions that people would have to witness. Now, maybe this tornado wasn't perfect. Maybe it didn't exceed people's expectations, but it was more than they got or wanted. Many people thought it was going to be a weak tornado at first, but it decided it was an EF5. And as the circulation approached New Hartford, the entire town was almost gone. Thankfully, though, it would just pass by town, which would save many other lives. Except, there was a major threat going on. There was 100-mile-per-hour RFD winds, which made the situation even worse. Although it lasted for only a couple minutes, it felt like hours for the people that were impacted. The circulation was becoming more messy. Damage was only getting worse. But what could have caused this to just suddenly weaken like this? Well, we can't exactly answer that for sure. But it was obvious that this storm was going to end soon. But it was just a matter of time. The circulation began to develop immense strength, just literally seconds after it just weakened somehow. This would be the story of something devastating. It was obvious that, although the tornado was weak, the winds above the ground were not weak. They exceeded 200 miles per hour. And as if it wasn't worse enough, it just had to be worse. But, like all things, they just have to come to an end after that. The years following the tornado meant the towns of Parkersburg and New Hartford, Dunkerton, and many other towns that are impacted would thankfully renovate. After 12 years, it seems like nothing actually happened. Just a town that once experienced something devastating. The loss was just complete. The destruction was as well. And after being on the ground for at least an hour, the circulation finally passes near the town of Fairbanks, Iowa. Now the residents of Iowa just had to take care of the damage, not have to deal with tornadoes anymore, right? No. An EF3 tornado would follow just behind the Parkersburg EF5. It would cause immense destruction, destroying many outbuildings and trees. But then it was thankfully dissipated. The outbreak was finally coming to an end. Light was then cast out on the 26th on this just intense damage. And thankfully, though, the tornado was no more. Sadly, 9 people would lose their lives. But this was the Parkersburg EF5. I hope you enjoyed the video and have an amazing day. Thank you for watching.